name is Anne, and I work in the LOHE Bioacoustics Lab at Hilo. In our lab, we study all different types of native Hawaiian birds. We study their behaviors and population size, their really unique vocalizations, which we call bioacoustics. So first, I'll tell you a little bit about myself, and I'll talk a little bit about what bioacoustics is. Then I'll tell you a little bit about our amazing LOHE Bioacoustics Lab research that we're doing, and I'll discuss why and how we study bioacoustics. Then I'll show you how we analyze these vocalizations and play some of our different Hawaiian birds. Lastly, we'll end with a couple cool activities. All right, I got my degrees from the University of Hawaiʻi here at Hilo. First, I got my Bachelor of Science degree in agriculture with a specialty in tropical horticulture, along with a plant tissue culture certificate. Then I pursued my master's degree in tropical conservation biology and environmental science, where my thesis research focused on describing the vocal characteristics of alala, our Hawaiian crow, Corvus hawaiiensis, and on comparing the current captive population with the past wild population. So the reason I pursued my degrees in these fields was because it's important to get to a point where our islands grow most of our food instead of importing everything from other places. And the reason I pursued conservation biology was to protect our precious forests, birds, and wildlife so that others can enjoy them in the future too. Do you know that we import over 85% of the food that we eat? So what kind of things can we do to change this? We can start small by supporting and buying local, by creating home gardens where even if you grow just a few things, that's a great start. Practicing the 3 R's, reduce, reuse, and recycle as much as you can, and practice sustainable fishing and hunting. Let the small fish go so they can grow and only keep what you need and don't waste. It's also really important that we protect our native birds and forests. Do you know that Hawaii is called the extinction capital of the world? This is because we've lost so many species. At least 32 bird species alone have gone extinct in Hawaii since 1778. Protecting our Hawaiian birds goes hand in hand with protecting our native forests. Not only do our forests provide a critical habitat for our Hawaiian birds, but they also filter and clean our air, giving us fresh oxygen and acting as a carbon sink. They are also important as our primary watersheds. These forests on the mountain recharge our underground aquifers and provide us with dependable sources of clean water for our streams. So how can we help to protect them? You can start by volunteering to help plant trees or help with ongoing conservation projects. You can also practice and share with others about things like rapid ohia death and how to prevent the spread of these terrible diseases. Our native forests are really important to our Hawaiian birds, and we're hopeful that through science, we will eventually be able to get rid of mosquitoes, which are the vectors for a mosquito-borne illness, such as avian malaria. And this is why a lot of our native Hawaiian birds, our forest birds, are up at higher elevations and not down lower where there are more mosquitoes like in our backyards. It would be really heartbreaking to see our precious birds go extinct and the forest to be left quiet without their beautiful songs. Now that you know a little bit about myself, let's talk about our awesome research that we do in our native forests with our Hawaiian birds' behaviors and bioacoustics. First of all, what is bioacoustics? So bioacoustics is where we study the sounds and vocalizations that animals make. In our lab, we have people studying bats and dolphins and whales, but we mainly focus on our native Hawaiian birds. So birds vocalize by calling or by singing. A call is a short vocalization, just like a chirp, and they communicate short bursts of information, such as alarm calls to warn each other if there's danger, or things like contact calls to find each other when they're in the forest. Songs are more complex and longer, and they use these things for mate attraction and also for things like territorial defense. So our human voices come from our larynx, which is our sound producing organ, while a bird's song comes from their syrinx, which is their two-sided vocal organ. And because they're two-sided, this is really cool. It allows them to sing both when they're inhaling and exhaling. And they can also sing two things at the same time. So we have a lot of ongoing research in our LOHE lab, and you can check it all out at our LOHE lab website, lohelab.org. But since I have a limited time today, I'll just be discussing a couple of our research projects that we're working on. The first is our Mauna Kea Nocturnal Seabirds and Bats project. While lots of research is conducted during the day, we also do research at night. So on Mauna Kea, we're looking for our native seabirds and bats. For seabirds, we're looking for uwa'u, our Hawaiian petrel, and aki, our bandrump storm petrel. These birds spend most of their time out at sea, but are known to breed in burrows at high elevations where they'll have their little chicks. They fly out to sea every day to get food for their growing chicks, and they'll come back at night to burrow after sunset and then depart again before dawn to go back up and start it all over again. They both nest on Mauna Kea, not Mauna Kea, on Mauna Loa, and were documented to have nested on Mauna Kea over 50 years ago. And excitingly, 50 years later, we've found evidence that they both might be nesting or at least utilizing parts of Mauna Kea in small populations. We are also looking for our native Hawaiian hoary bat, or peapea, who are known to sometimes hang out in higher elevations. So how do we study them if it's at night and we can't see anything? So we use different methods, one of which is that we set out our wildlife acoustic song meters, which we can program to record at certain times each night. Then we'll go back into the field and collect them and go through all the data in the lab to see whether we've detected any seabirds or bats. We also use ornithological radar, which is similar to fishing radar, but instead of scanning the ocean for fish, we're scanning the skies to see if we can find seabirds and bats. So this is a video of it running. Can you folks see that okay? So with each rotation, thanks, it's getting an image which it puts back into our computer. And this is what our video looks like on the screen in our truck. So we basically have a setup with the radar on our hood as we are in the field and a computer in our vehicle, which we can look at. And so you should see the screen moving. I hope you guys can see it. Things with little dots, and you can see the little red dots up here are moving, and behind them there's this blue dot trail. And so with each rotation, about every 2 seconds, we'll get a new image and we can see what is flying around us, above us. And some of them are really small and go slowly with smaller dots, which could be large insects like moths, which also get picked up on the radar. And then we'll get bigger targets that have bigger and farther apart blue dots behind them. And that indicates that they're moving faster. And our seabirds can fly over 40 miles an hour. So it's pretty fast. All right, the next thing that we use is our night vision binoculars and night vision gear. So this helps us to see at night. So we are able to see what's going on around us and in the sky as well. It's a little bit tricky because seabirds can fly really quickly. So maybe even if we're looking out at the sky, we'll be able to see something pass really quickly, but it's still hard to identify what exactly just flew by. But the night vision binoculars do help. We also use FLIR, which is forward-looking infrared, and this allows us to see the heat of an object or a person or an animal or things like that. And this allows us to see their body heat, kind of something like out of a movie or something. And we're able to see, if you look at the bottom image, these kind of light colorations on the bottom are actually the rocks on Mauna Kea, and they're holding in some of the heat from the day. All right. So besides our Mauna Kea study, we also do a lot of different study on our Hawaiian forest birds, both their behaviors and in bioacoustics. We do research mostly on the Big Island, but we also do some on Maui and Kauai and different islands. So similarly to our Mauna Kea study, we also use recorders to gather data. For our forest birds, we use two different types of recorders. If we use the green automatic recorder pictured on the right, we can program it and leave it out in the forest or in aviaries to record at certain times of the day or the night. This is really useful because it helps to gather large amounts of data without actually needing to be in the forest. So this is good if it's a remote or hard to access location. We can get months worth of data without needing to be in the field for months. This is especially helpful when we're looking for presence or absence of endangered species, which can be really hard to detect. So if we're in the field for a few hours, we may not detect them even if they're there. We use handheld recorders, pictured on the left, to find a bird in the forest or in an aviary that we want to record. And we do this by pointing the microphone directly at the bird that we would like to record. And we can get specific recordings of individual birds. All right, so why is it important to study these vocalizations? So it's important to study them for many reasons. If we use handheld recorders, we can record specific Hawaiian birds and compare the vocalizations to each other. For example, we could compare what the EEV on the right was saying compared to the EEV on the left. We can also see if males and female birds of different species of the same species have different vocalizations. For example, does Mr. EEV say different things or the same things as Mrs. EEV? If we place automatic recorders in the forest, we can study the recordings and find out what types of bird species live in that area. For example, we could detect Hawaii amakihi or EEVs or elapaio. We can also compare older recordings to more recent recordings to see if the vocalizations are changing over the years and over time. We can study birds living in different habitats or different locations or even on different islands to see if their vocalizations are the same or if they're different. So for example, we could study what the Hawaii amakihi on Hawaii Island says and compare it to the Hawaii amakihi on Maui and see if they are different or the same. So after we collect all these recordings and data from the field, we then bring it into the lab so that we can analyze it on the computer. So one of the softwares that we use is Raven Pro 1.6. And this is what a vocalization recording looks like in Raven. So you can see on the top, it's a waveform graph, the little squiggly blue lines, and that has to do with how much power and amplitude are in their vocalization. And on the bottom, the blue and green with the kind of patterns in it is our spectrogram. And that's what we focus on when we're looking and analyzing vocalizations. So you can see there's frequency on the y-axis and time on the x-axis. And each vocalization has a different pattern and has different little lines in it. So that's what we use to help identify the different birds. Each bird species has a different type of vocalization and they look different with different patterns. So now I'm going to show you spectrograms of our different Hawaiian birds, and you can see and look at the different patterns and structures and see if you can tell the differences in them. So this is the Hawaii amakihi. You can check out its cool checkmark pattern songs. Okay. This is what they sound like. Did you guys hear that okay? Yeah, okay, awesome.
That sounds good.
Thanks. All right, the next is our oma'o, which is our native Hawaiian thrush. And these guys are frugivores, so they're really important for seed dispersal through the forest. And this is what they sound like. There we go. This is our alavi, our Hawaii creeper, which is endangered. And they got their name not because they're creepy, but because they creep along the branches foraging for food and insects to eat. So this is what these guys sound like. This one is our Hawaii elapaio, which is one of my favorite birds. They're really cute and curious, and they'll come up to you in the forest to see who you are and what you're doing. And this is what they sound like. Okay. This is our Hawaii akapa. So the male birds are bright orange, pictured on the left, and the females are a little bit more greenish yellow in color with a little patch of yellow-orange on their front, pictured on the right. They are also endangered. Okay. This is what they sound like. Okay. This is our Akiapula owl. They are also affectionately called our Hawaiian woodpecker, and this is because of the way that they forage. So when they forage for bugs and larvae, they open their bills. So if you can see, the bottom mandible, the bottom part of their bill, is very chunky, like it's stocky and strong looking, and much thicker than the top. So when they open their mouth, they actually pound on the wood to make little holes and to see where if there's any bugs in there with their bottom portion of their bill. And then with the top long curved portion, they extract and take out any bugs that they find. And it's really cool because their top is actually kind of flexible too. So they're able to maneuver and pull things out really easily.
Did they ever
And,
get hurt?
oh, sorry.
Oh, I was sorry. I was just really like, do they ever get hurt doing that? Is it flexible enough if they like miss and I don't know. It looks so delicate if they're
Yes, it's I think birds are made I mean, I think it is delicate for us. But for them, like for their body is made perfectly for pounding on the wood and extracting these things. I was actually surprised to see how flexible they are. And the reason why I did was because there's a video that was taken from banding. And while they were doing banding, which we do mist netting to catch these birds for different research projects, where everyone is trained to handle the birds with care, and they take their measurements and they give them bands for identification, which I'll kind of talk about a little bit later. But these birds, one was trying to bite somebody's finger. It doesn't hurt. It's just adorable. And their top bill was like moving around. It was crazy. And so thus, wow, they're really flexible bills. And it didn't hurt the bird because we're swishy, so it didn't hurt their bill either. Yeah, it's incredible. Their bill structure is really amazing, and it's amazing too because when they're pounding on on the wood, you can hear it if you listen closely in the forest, which is another reason why it's so important when you go out. You can listen for all these things, and you may pick up or listen or find something really cool that you wouldn't have been able to if you weren't listening for it.
Very
Yeah.
cool. Thank you. Yeah, makes sense. They're like strong by being flexible, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, they're really cool and they have really strong legs. They can hang upside down and they can do all kinds of things. But they are also what we call sexually dimorphic, which means that they're different colors. So the males and females are different colors by plumage. So if you're in the field, you can tell them apart by just looking at them. And so the one on the right is a male Aki. He's nice and bright yellow. And the one on the left is not a female actually, it's a juvenile. So another thing is that when the birds are young birds and they're fledglings or juveniles, they'll have sometimes a slightly different color plumage, usually a little bit duller or a little bit more gray or brown to help them to camouflage when they're young to protect them from predators. So that's why he's a little bit, um, starting to get in his yellow, but he'll get his full adult male plumage as he gets older. And they are also critically endangered. And this is what they sound like. All right, this is our apapani. So for apapani, both males and females have the same plumage colors, and they look as the same from far away. The males are slightly bigger, but not enough to be able to tell from up in the tree. And one way to identify these red birds from other red birds is that they have this white patch of feathers under their black tail. So they look like they're wearing white pants, and you can see them from a distance. And another cool thing is that these birds make really cool wing flutter as they fly. So as they fly through the forest, you can hear like, and then that's not exactly what it sounds like, but kind of. And you can hear that flying through the forest, and you know it's either an apapani or an iiwi. And yeah, their wings make cool noises, and we can actually pick it up on the spectrogram, which I'll show you guys a little bit later. And if you look at their vocalizations on the spectrogram, you can see all these crazy patterns and different structures that they do. And they have a lot of different types of vocalization. So they're really complex. And I'll play them for you. Okay. And this is our Iiwi. So just like the Apapani, their wings also make these cool fluttering noises. They also have really complex vocalizations. Some people think they sound like squeaky doors or squeaky hinges and things like that when they have these kind of long whistles. So I will play them for you. All right, this is our Palila, and they live on Mauna Kea in Mamane Forest, and they eat green Mamane seed pods. They're also really endangered. And it's great if you'll be able to see them. There's different places that you guys can actually go to see them that are open to the public, like the Pu'ula'au Palila Discovery Forest Trail and different areas like that, where you can actually go hiking into the forest and see them out in the forest, in the Mamani Nile forests. And this is what they sound like. This one is the Allah. So I did my thesis research on the Allah, and I just love them. They're beautiful birds. They're really kind of big in size, maybe almost close to or even the same or larger than an eel. They're pretty big and they're really intelligent. You can see the photo on the right. This one's holding a stick, and they are one of the corvids known to, or documented to show that they're able to use tools, and that they'll take different size sticks to try to get things out of the logs. Like if there's a cricket or a bug or something yummy that they want to eat that they can't reach, they'll go ahead and try different size sticks to try to get them out. Or if something's submerged in water, they can pull it out with like different size sticks if it's shallow water. And they do all kinds of different vocalizations. So sometimes when we think of crows, or if we see crows on the mainland, a lot of them, or in movies, I guess, they just like make vocalizations like go, go. Like that's what you think of when you think of a crow. But Allah do all different types of things, and they have a wide range of vocal repertoire. So I will play some of their really cool calls.
Wow, it's so cool.
They do all kinds of things. And this is our nene, our Hawaiian goose, which is also our state bird. And so a little bit of what I mentioned earlier is if you can see the band on the picture on the left, the nene's banded with a little green band around with a little code on it. And so birds are, again, handled with lots of care and banded and taking their weight and measurements and different things like that. And if you look at their bands, you can get their color combinations or their alpha combinations, and you're able to actually see them and identify different individuals. So if you go out and you see a nene with bands, if you write the bands down, you can call and find out and see who that nene is. And is it a male or is it a female? And approximately how old is that nene? And different things like that, which is really cool. And the research we do on it actually helps so that we can help monitor and see how are they doing. Oh, if we see them in the wild, they look really good, or if they're doing well, or different things like that. So that really helps in helping us determine the fitness of individuals. And so let's see. Okay, this is what the nene sounds like. Very goosey sounding. And this is our pueo, our Hawaiian short-eared owl. So our pueo, our short-eared owls, are diurnal, and this means that they come out usually during the day. We also have a non-native barn owl that comes out at night, and their plumage is mostly white. So if you see a white owl at night, it's probably our non-native barn owl. And if you see this kind of brownish white owl during the daytime, it's probably our pueo, our native Hawaiian owl. And another cool thing about them is that they can control all their feathers in their face. So if you look at the two different pictures, you can see a little difference in their face. Their feathers are like, so the one on the right is kind of an open like rounder looking face with more white on it, and the one on the left is kind of like has ruffled its feathers in the front, making it look like a little angrier, I guess. And so they can actually control, and a lot of birds can do this too, is control their feathers on their body, which is really cool. Another cool thing is that sometimes you can tell their owls what time of day they come out by the color of their eyes. So a lot of times yellow is diurnal owls, and you can see our pueo has beautiful yellow eyes for seeing during the daytime. And this is what they sound like. Okay. This is our EO, our Hawaiian hawk. And our Hawaiian hawks are really cool because their plumage differs even if they're the same species. So if you're on the Hilo side, a lot of times you'll see these dark brown morphs, which is the picture on the left, and they have really dark brown plumage. And the one on the right, you can mainly see in Kona, and they have really cream colored plumage with a little bit of brown on their back usually. And then we have the intermediate, which is kind of a mix between the light and dark morph. So in the middle, you can see he's got light feathers and some dark feathers going on. And all of these three different color morphs are the same species. And sometimes what birds will do is they'll have different colorations of their plumage depending on the environment and the climate they're in. So if it's more rainy, they may have a certain color. If it's colder or hotter, drier, things like that. So their plumage can actually change even if they're the same species, which is really cool. All right, and this is what these sound like. Okay.
I have a question about the eel. Sorry. How can you tell if it's male or female?
That's a great question. I think, I don't know if the females are, I'm not sure, but I don't think that you can tell by plumage.
Yeah, I think it's their feet, right? Like their claws or something, the color of it.
Their size, I think the females, okay, I may be mistaken, but I think that the females are larger, slightly larger than the males. I'm not sure about their feet and their claws. That'd be cool. I will look into it. I'm not sure. You can tell the age of the birds by their cere, which is the little, like the little color thingy right above their bill, like their little nose, like above their nose. And if they're yellow or things like that, they're adults. And then if it's more greenish or colored, then they're juveniles. So I know you can tell them apart from that, but I'm not sure besides the size thing. That would be really interesting.
Yeah, I tried to look it up before because I've seen a light morph eel, like the one all the way on the right in Puna, actually.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I've never seen an eel like this, like in this color on this side of the island. So I was wondering if it was just the difference in the sex or the age or
yeah, there's adult, both male and females. Yeah, that's the one thing. It's that it's really cool. Like both males and females are all these different colors. And so there's even a pair up at Hakalau, which there was one that was like, one was a light morph and one was a dark morph, and they were like together. And it's really cool to see the color differences, but they're actually, yeah, it's actually they're just their plumage depending on, I guess, where they live, or their genetics and things like that. And not really male and female differences, where usually, the male will be one color, the female will be one color, and then you can kind of differentiate them by that. Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you. That's really cool. I like the cream colored ones. I like all of them, of course, but the cream colored ones, they're so pretty. It's like we have a vanilla eel and a chocolate and then a swirl.
Yeah, they are. They just look fluffier too.
Yeah, they do. They look so cuddly. Yeah, but that's a great question. Okay, we made it. Okay, so for the first activity, I'm gonna play you 2 different audio clips, and then you're gonna have to guess if it is the same species of bird vocalizing or a different species. Okay, so you're gonna guess if bird 1 is the same species as bird 2. Okay. Ooh. Okay, so bird 1. Okay, one more time, bird 1. Okay, so that was bird 1, and this is bird number 2. One more time, bird 2. All right, so what do you guys think? Do you think it's a different species? I guess, I don't know. can't really chat in the box. But if you guys think it's a different species or any guesses.
You guys can yell out. What do you think? What's different? You think the same, Tyson? Yeah, some little part of it sounds the same. Yeah, that's what Tyson's saying. I think it's really hard to tell. I'm like, because I believe they can make really different sounds.
Okay, so we have some same, some different.
Yeah, it seems like the consensus is different, right? Give a thumbs up if you think they're the same, thumbs down if you think they're different. What do you guys think? We got thumbs down, thumbs up, thumbs down. What do you think?
Okay.
All right, yeah, looks like we're pretty split. We're pretty divided here.
Oh, okay, very good. All right, so they're different species. But it's really tricky to tell just by listening. So the bird one is our Hawaii amakihi, and the second bird is our iiwi. So the Hawaii amakihi have these kind of checkmark vocalizations, and the iiwi have these kind of like more whistles and squeaky types of calls. So if you listen, this is the amakihi, so you can listen for the check marks. It goes like down and up and down and up and down and up. And then this one is the EEV, which have more whistles or kind of squeaky kind of calls.
Cool.
But some of their calls are similar to each other too. Like sometimes they'll copy each other and then it gets to be really, really difficult to tell them apart. But great guesses. It is really tricky. Okay, so round 2. Okay, is bird 3 the same species as bird 4? And yes, they may get a little trickier. So listen really carefully. Bird number 3, if it's a different species than bird number 4. So this is bird number 3. Okay, one more time. Bird number 3. Okay, and then bird number 4. That was fast. Okay, one more time. Bird number 4. Okay, what do you guys think? Do you think it's the same species or a different species?
I'm seeing thumbs up, a thumbs down, sideways. Looks like they're saying I'd say the consensus is different, but there's some who are saying the same. I think the same. I'm not sure though.
Okay. Okay. Those are great guesses. I love the thumb sideways. That's hilarious. We feel that way too sometimes where we can't I can't decide if it's what species it is. Okay, so they're different. So this is really tricky. This is trickier than the first one. Bird number 3 and bird number 4 are different. And it's hard because they kind of do the same repetitive notes. So the Hawaii kepa, bird number 3, will repeat the same kind of notes over and over, but in a straight line. And they have a really sweet sounding kind of song. And then the alavi will do their 2 different notes repetitively and go a little bit down in frequency. So instead of like staying at the same pitch, it'll go like slightly down. So I'll play it for you guys. So the Hawaii kepa, which is kind of straight. And the alavi, which goes slightly down. Just slightly. And it's a little faster too.
Yeah.
So you can see like the notes are a little bit closer together on the alavi compared to the kepa too. But just these slight things make a big difference, and that's how you can identify them in the field or in the lab. Okay, last round, round 3 for the first activity. Okay, so this one is also maybe a little tricky. Same thing. If bird number 5 is the same or different than bird number 6 in species. different species. Okay, so bird number 5. Okay, one more time, bird number 5. Okay, and bird number 6. One more time, bird number 6. All right, so what do you guys think? Do you think it's the same or a different species?
All right, we got 2 thumbs down, 2 thumbs up, and I'm not sure. And I think they're the same. I'm sticking with the same. Look at it. One of these.
Okay, great guesses. Good guesses, you guys. All right, they are the same. So this one is really tricky. Just because apapane are so complex. So these guys, I think, are one of the more complex Hawaiian islands. They also mimic other birds. So sometimes you think it's one bird and it's not that bird, it's the apapane. And we joke in the lab that if we don't know what a certain sound is, that is probably an apapane. So when in doubt, it's an apapane. And they make really complex vocalizations. So you can see just in here that there are all different types of patterns. And yeah, I can play it one more time for you guys. But number 5, this one. And then number 6.
What are they saying? It sounds like they're talking. It sounds so intricate.
They do. And they sing quite often. They're really cool little guys. And they're so complex, which is so funny. But yeah, I love them. Okay. Okay, here's our next activity. So this is our second and last activity. Now that you've been able to detect what bird species are different from each other, see if you can detect how many different bird species you hear. So how many different species you hear? Not how many different number of birds, but the species. Okay, so, okay, listen closely. Let me just, okay. I was like, what is my next slide? Okay. How many different bird species do you hear? Okay. One more time. How many different bird species are you hearing? Okay. What do you guys think?
I think, well, what do you guys think? I got a 4, a 4, a 2, a 1, and a 3, 4, 3, 4. I think 1. 1, like apapane, but I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. Identification going on as well as different amount of birds. I like it.
Trying it. I don't know if I'm right. You still think it's 2 still? Yeah.
Okay, 2 birds. That's a good guess. 2, 3, 1.
Yeah.
Okay.
How many
Oh.
more?
Okay. So it was 2 different species. Good job, you guys.
I seriously only heard 1. I was like, it sounded like the apapane, but then they changed their song.
Wow, that's very good. One was the apapane, which is an awesome guess. And the second is an akiapola'au. So in blue here, we have where the apapane vocalized. And then in yellow, we have where the akiapola'au vocalized. So you can see they kind of overlap. So this is very similar to in what we see, a lot of birds overlap, especially in Hawaii for some reason. they just go ahead and sing on top of each other. And then we have to figure out who's singing at once and, you know, which birds are singing and things like that. I forgot to also mention that the spectrograms earlier were blue and green. So usually we use that for presentations and they were just really cool colors. But when we actually do our analysis in the lab, you actually see it in black and white. Okay, so the next one is very similar to what we just did, but instead of just a little clip, this is a clip of a dawn chorus. So dawn chorus a lot of times is when birds are really active and vocal. So there's a lot of singing going on. So I'm gonna play you a clip and you're gonna do the same thing and tell me how many different species you think are vocalizing in this clip. Okay, there's a lot of birds. Okay, listen closely. Here we go.
Wow.
Okay.
That was overwhelming.
Okay, I'll play one more time. All right, so this is very similar to what we actually go through in the lab and can be really tough. What do you guys think? How many bird species did you think that you heard?
Got a 3.
Okay, great guess.
2 and 8 maybe. 3 or 4.
Okay,
Yeah.
3 or 4. Great guesses, guys.
That's amazing. Could you actually tell how many are in? How many that is?
Oh yeah.
That's amazing.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy.
All right, so our guesses are 3, 4, and 8, I think, or something.
Yeah, I would say like 8 or so. Tyson was saying like 3 or 4. Yeah.
Okay, awesome guesses. So there are 4 different species. Yeah, it's crazy. It's just that they sing so much. So it sounds like there's many different birds, but there's actually 4 different species. So the EEV are the purple little brackets, and the Hawaii amakihi are the yellow ones. Apapani are blue, and Elapai are white. And so you can see that they really just sing on top of each other, and it's hard to tell what's going on sometimes. So we have to look at it and really listen to it to hear the different species vocalizing. Another really cool thing is that, like I talked about earlier with the Apapani and EEV wing flutters. So if you look at the maroon arrow on the bottom, I don't know if everyone can see it, but there are these tiny little marks at the bottom of the spectrogram, and those are actually their wing flutter. So when they're going through, it's like that's what their wing flutter looks like on the spectrogram, which is really cool.
That is awesome. And the EEV has such a unique signature, like all those different frequencies at the same time.
Yeah, they do. And so the closer some birds are, the more the harmonics go up the spectrogram. So those are all those little lines will go up the spectrogram. The Allah will do that too, where if they're close to the microphone, they'll get like all the harmonics all the way up to the top, which is really cool.
Wow.
Yes, so this is what we do in our bioacoustics lab. Yeah, but great guesses, guys. That was kind of tricky. So in summary, thank you so much for your patience. And don't forget to take time to notice and listen to each bird and animal around you. As you can see, each bird has its own unique voice in both how it sounds and how it looks. Protecting our precious birds is also connected to conserving our native forests. And I would encourage you guys to find something that you're passionate about. No matter what career path you choose, you can still practice conservation every day by following the 3 R's, by buying, supporting, and growing local, volunteering in cool conservation programs, and sharing with others what you learn. Remember that you can make a difference in our Hawaii through sustainable practices and by learning more about our native forest and our native Hawaiian birds, and in sharing what you learn with others. Together, we can work towards protecting our Hawaii and our amazing Hawaiian birds. And thank you so much.
That was perfect. Oh, round of applause.